from the drink in hand. The bane rocked as I felt the waves stand. A crashing fear ran over me as I turned to our mate of misery. What waits for us at port? What grand spectacle of the court? For what crime shall we be thrown in the pits of darkness down below? The mate at first did not reply before his calloused hands reached the sky. 10 cents per barrel of tea was a tax just a bit too steep for we. So now, son, we ride the waves, take them far as the charts will brave. For those who we once called friend would now wish to hang us in their stead. Hey! I shook my head from side to side. My family had crossed my mind. The mate left it off as he watched my eye and rose to the table proud and high. Oh yes, a price was paid for those we loved and the place we made. But what cost would you not see to keep your scraps of liberty? By now a few weeks had passed us by before the colors of the king had been spied across the edge of the water plain, closely gaining on the bane. Oh yes, a price was paid, those we loved and the place we made. But what cost would you not see to keep your scraps of liberty? The fight was brutal, deck to deck. Many of our brothers the waves had kept. As the bane limped away, we watched as our country sank today. Oh yes, a price was paid, those we loved and the place we made. But what cost would you not see to keep your scraps of liberty?
Christian made me a sea shanty. We have sea shanties now! That's the wrong intro! Oh god, it's chaos! Okay, I pushed all the wrong buttons. I don't care. Welcome to the show, Shepard. How are you?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me on again, Patrick. I appreciate it.
I literally hit all of the buttons, and everything started happening at the same time.
That is exciting.
It's the kind of high standards and professionalism you can expect around here. It's good to have you, man. Welcome back to the show. Special guest today, everybody. Shepard the Voluntaryist. He's got his own platform. You can look him up by that name. He does some excellent content. He's really good at the short form stuff with really quick, poignant messages. It'll be good to have him here to hang out. We're going to hang out for an hour or two. We've got a list of cool stuff we're going to talk about. And there's very few people in the world I would rather talk about this stuff with than Shepard. Good to see you guys. Jeff, Copblock, Keynes, Helen. Let's do this. Pull up a chair. So welcome, Shepard. Sorry, I said welcome.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, wait. Yeah, you know what, though? You said welcome, and then you started talking. But man, I just want to send the compliment back at you. You and the tribe that you are creating. It is just so fun to have these conversations where you can go deep and our true interest. We're not interested in just getting this done so we can go watch sports ball. Our true interest is what we're actually doing, as geeky and nerdy and deep as it might be, or shallow. Maybe I'm just egotistical, but it is so fun to speak with fellow travelers. Thank you for being a brilliant dude and having me on.
Likewise. I reciprocate that, let's just say. Oh, your wife's in chat. What's up, Lynn? Good to see you. Okay, so let's see. Oh, the sea shanty. I didn't give that the credit it was due.
What is it? What is a sea shanty?
A sea
it sounds like a pirate something?
Yeah, back in the day, sailors, like whalers or any kind of sailors, really, they had to do a lot of manual labor that was very repetitive. And there's something about the human species when you give them a beat and a rhythm and something to say while they're doing it. You know, like with the army, when they march, they have the songs that they sing when they march, and it sort of helps them, stay synchronized and press on and do more work. Well, they have the same thing for sailing, and they're called sea shanties. And I love old music like like folk music and the Irish stuff and the sea shanties. I've always been a fan of it, and I was listening to some of it again, and I just randomly tweeted. I said, look, if it's not a sea shanty, I'm just really not interested in hearing it right now. So if you want to tell me something, rephrase it in the form of a sea shanty, and maybe I'll pay attention. And Christian, who you've seen on the show recently, literally says, challenge accepted. And a couple hours later, literally made that sea shanty for me that we opened the show with.
That is awesome. That's like, I thought that was a professionally done song.
It was awesome. Yes. Yeah. So shout out to him. I'm definitely going to open more shows with that. Hopefully we can get him to make some more.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, man. So you have a lot of really cool stuff on your list, and the first one I think has something to do with cell phone laws. You want to get us stuck into that one?
Oh, I drive. Oh yeah. There's a pirate tie-in, right?
Yeah.
I drive past this sign every day. Well, every day that I enter the municipal government jurisdiction near where I live, and the sign says something like "hands-free devices only," something to that effect. And you're only allowed to talk on your smartphone if it's hands-free, and that's kind of silly. And the reason I think that that's silly is that, it's way more dangerous if you're distracted while you're driving. And when I say they, I mean the government, they even call it distracted driving. Can one's hands become distracted? No, it's the brain that becomes distracted. So is the problem the hands, or is the problem the brain? And I would suggest they're going to go to some body part away from the brain. We should probably blame the eyes for looking away. I know that every time that I have been texting while driving and done something stupid, it hasn't been my hand. They're not the problem. It wasn't me pushing. It's not like if I'd been pushing the button more slowly, it would have been safer. No, it was my eyes weren't on the road. I wasn't paying attention. So it's eyes and brain. Is that accurate, or am I blaming the wrong body parts here?
Yeah, brain, because it controls everything else, probably. Yeah, that's what I'd go with.
Yeah, and I find it interesting that back in the day when I was a cop, we had computers in our car, and there are still many computers in cop cars. And so now, if I was still a cop, I would be pulling someone over. And I recall the policy before I left back in 2004 or 5. The policy was that you shouldn't call in on your radio while you're looking straight ahead, driving carefully with one hand on your mic. You should instead run the license plate by looking down at your computer and typing away, because you shouldn't waste the dispatcher's time for that. And even then it was silly. And I think now a lot of the laws are that you have to be in the official performance of duties in order to be on the cell phone if you're a cop. Yeah. But why is that? Like if my special police training years ago made me able to talk on the phone safely while driving, if I was talking about police business, wouldn't that training carry over now that I'm not a cop? And if you're a busy entrepreneur and you need to multitask, couldn't you maybe go attend that same training so that you can also multitask, and maybe have a little sticker on your car that says, I've been trained to be distracted while I'm driving and still do it safely, just like our protectors do?
I've got NASA's permission. I can do it. All right,
I don't know.
I'll be right back.
Yes, absolutely. So while Patrick's gone, what do you say in the comments? What do you think the big deal is? Do you think it is the brain being distracted, or do you think it's the hands moving on the keyboard, or do you think that it is the eyes not being able to look up and see the little puppy that just started to run across the road? I mean, what do you think it is? And I guess I would ask Patrick, and just kind of as a nice segue also, I just wish there was something about what we're talking about that could help people not get in trouble for this. Can you think of anything, Patrick?
Ha ha! I didn't know you were going to... I should have been prepared with this. So this is a product offered in the Disenthrall store. You can find it at, I think it's disenthrall.me/shop or something like that. And it is a piece of plastic, 3D printed resin that says on one side, "Victimless crimes are not crimes," and on the back it's got the Disenthrall logo, and it says "Lead yourself" on the bottom. The one possible thing you might want to do with this is just keep it in your car, so that if you ever get pulled over by somebody trying to enforce a victimless crime law surrounding mobile phones, you can just, when they roll down the window, you can say, "Oh, what, was I on the phone? What, the phone? I was on the phone? Oh, are you sure?" And then you have this in your hand instead of a mobile phone, thereby giving you plausible deniability. And putting the burden of proof on them to prove that, that they have to now prove you were on the phone, and not making a First Amendment protected protest. So,
what a great gift for the libertarian in your life who wants to have that one little stick it to the man thing. I love it.
Yeah, and it's a good conversation starter in the car, because people will be like, "What the hell is that? What is that in your center console?" Oh, that's my. I would often say something like, I would point to my gun on my hip and say, "This is my bad guy protection, and that's my good guy protection."
Oh, what do you mean by that? Yeah, good conversation
This protects me
starter.
from the good guys. Yeah.
I like that. Of course, I wonder if when we talk about this kind of thing, if we're smart, we're kind of giving away our thinking and our tricks. I don't know.
Why? It's a catch-22, right? I mean,
It is.
Do you want? Let's get into it. So, what's the strategy and tactical evaluation there?
I don't know. I mean, I think about it. If a businessman goes around bragging on social media that, "Hey, I just got a brand new pickup truck and I was able to write it off and I really don't use it for business at all," then that person is incriminating themselves, and maybe there's an IRS agent that watches it, or a legislator that says, "Ooh, there's a loophole. Thanks for letting us know about that loophole. It's time to go fix that and seal it up." And I saw that a lot during the panic of 2020 going into 2021, when people were wearing face diapers, and there were a lot of people out there offering products, the mesh face diapers and such. And the problem with putting it out there and saying they don't do anything, or this mesh is doing just as much. And I love the idea. I made my own mesh. However, exactly. There's another good one to do.
/store.
Those are available for purchase?
Yeah, you can buy them right
Perfect.
now. Yeah.
Perfect. So the challenge with this is that then, okay, now the legislators know to go make a law that says the holes in the mask have to be at least, I don't know anything about science, but 38 microns in diameter. Well, there goes that loophole. And each time we brag about having found a loophole, maybe that's the best way to put it. Each time we brag about having found a loophole, are we in fact, I don't know, showing them a chink in their own armor, and then they can fix it, so next time we can't use that?
I think the other side of that is that oftentimes there's an assumption, because all government services are generally really terrible. There's an easy assumption to fall into that the government is generally full of complete morons and idiots that are not really a threat because they're so dumb. Oh no, there are some very smart and intelligent people working within the government that are absolutely on the lookout for this stuff. And they're absolutely looking for the chinks in their armor that you're pointing out. They absolutely watched my live stream when I was one of the first people. I think I was the first one in the world to live stream the 3D printing of a firearm on YouTube.
Yeah,
they were absolutely watching that. They were absolutely watching the Facebook group that I got permanently banned from Facebook and called a terrorist over because, the FBI has been showing up at people's houses that were involved in that Facebook group around Dallas right now. So, it is dumb on your part to think that they're not paying attention and listening to the words that we're saying right now. That said, where's the line, though? Because, on the other hand, there are most of the people watching this would probably not be voluntarist, libertarian minded if it weren't for the internet and people talking about this stuff. So,
yes.
So
where? Yeah, I don't know where that line is. I first started thinking about it, gosh, probably 25, 30 years ago when I was a deputy in a jail, and we found a paper clip inside when we were doing a shakedown, was searching the cells. We found a paper clip that had been hidden because it's contraband. You're not allowed to have it if you're an inmate. We found it inside a toothpaste tube. Well, guess what? We squirted out on every subsequent search. So, yeah, way to go, guy. Now you have something to give yourself a tattoo with. But on the other hand, now all of your buddies are getting their toothpaste squirted out. It's probably being sold to them for $20 through the commissary scam in the jail system. But I don't know. Is it worth it in the short term to have that win? And how much do you publicize it? I don't have the correct answer. I think that's up to each of us, but it's something to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Case by case. Good to see you guys over on Odysee, Invisible Hand, Liberty After Dark. Christian, we led the show with your sea shanty, by the way. I know
it was awesome.
You may have joined afterwards. And I will probably be opening more shows with your sea shanty. You should make me more sea shanty. We should collab on some sea shanties because I'm learning how to play the guitar. So that would be cool. Let's have anarchy sea shanties now, please, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So let's see what's next. You had a lot of really good notes on wealth building, and then I have some really good notes, I think, on how to handle feelings around being wrong. And so I think it'll be good for everybody involved. I want to hear what you have to say about wealth building, and then we can go through my advice. So yeah, why don't you hit us up with that? What's your wealth building thoughts?
Kind of my thoughts, and we've talked about this before, how we wish there were more wealthy libertarians. And when I say libertarian, I mean with a small L, not the people in the libertarian, what's that thing called? It's pronounced a special way that you're so good at. The party.
The party. The libertarian party.
Not those people, but the small L libertarians, people who believe in liberty. Wouldn't it just be nifty if every time a libertarian wanted something special done, wanted something funded, they didn't have to go hit Roger Ver up or Patrick Byrne or Byrne with Overstock? If you could actually just say, oh no, everybody, all 10,000 of us are doing really well financially. We're all solvent. We're able to invest in each other's projects and such. With wealth comes power. And it's just the fact that if you are driving a Mercedes, you are less likely, a newer model, you are less likely to get pulled over by the police. You are less likely to be hassled over things. In my business, when I have billionaire clients, it's funny how I'm almost more likely to give them freebies. It's like, oh, you forgot your wallet, that's okay. Just because I'm in such awe of being in their presence. And at my small level of wealth, better than some, lower than many, I'm not treated that way, I don't think. But there is that extra little bit of good treatment you get if you have money. And I think that can come from legislators. It can come from the cops. It can come from neighbors. You're kind of, in our society, you look up to the person that has a few bucks. And so we've talked about this before. I wish more people would do that. And so I was just kind of thinking of the basics of the foundational level that, you did that. What's the series you did on internet security? What's that called?
Password hygiene. Boomers.
Yeah, password hygiene. And so that is low level stuff for tech people. But for a middle-aged guy like me, it was new information. And I'm not a big idiot, but it was new information that I just simply didn't know. And I think that many people who have for many years worked as an employee, and there's a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then the follow-up to that is Cash Flow Quadrant. And essentially there are 4 quadrants. Employee is the first one, and then S is the next. So E is the first, employee. S is the next, being a small business owner. So you own your business, but if you don't show up, you're not making any money that day. So that would be a dentist that doesn't have other dentists working for them. And then the next quadrant is B for business. And that's when you have your business, but you can take off for a week and it'll still run itself and make you money. And then the fourth quadrant being investor. And that is when you're not even dealing with the management of it. You don't have to put any of that into effect. You're just putting your capital into it, and then somebody else handles the details. So for the people that are in the E quadrant, the employee quadrant, there are a lot of things that I think, just like I'd never thought of good password hygiene, they hadn't thought of all the aspects of how do you build wealth and grow wealth. And I've been fortunate enough over the last 30 years to make so many mistakes and learn so much and study it a lot. And I'm married to a gal that is brilliant at this stuff and leads our family in this way and has taught me so much. And we have together sought out mentors and just learned so much about it. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? You've done all of those quadrants, right?
Yeah. Kind of the hard knocks path of learning. This is not it. So what most people they don't take it seriously enough. They don't take money as a skill seriously enough. Like, it is something you have to learn. It is not something like breathing that you just get automatically. It's not like, oh, I have some money. It's in my account. I know how to do money. Oh, no, you probably don't. Not unless you've either been taught or went out of your way to learn. And money that you don't treat wisely and that you don't respect is money that will not be with you for very long, much less grow over time into real wealth. And
I like how you're almost personifying money. I love that idea.
What do you mean?
That if you don't treat it well, like we're almost saying that it is capable of feelings. But the truth is, somebody made the comment in some book a while back that think of each dollar that you have as an employee, and what are you going to send that employee out to do today to make more money for you?
Yeah,
love that idea.
I started thinking about money that way after I read Atlas Shrugged. There's a really good rant by Francesco de Ancona on there where he talks about money and how people that don't deserve their money, don't have it for long. It leaves them and goes looking for people that do. That's why, he talks about, people that inherit large sums of money are usually destroyed by the money instead of the money serving them. People that have earned their money know how to make it serve them. And, of course, these are all sort of like anthropomorphizations of an inanimate object, but it makes sense, and it actually seems to be descriptive of reality in terms of if you know how to use money, if you know how to use that tool, then you can make it grow. And if you don't, not only can you lose it really quickly, but it can actually make your life worse. Like if you don't know what you're doing, having a lot of money can legit make your life worse, and I don't think most people are even aware of how that can happen.
I've seen that a ton.
Yeah.
You kind of. I kind of think the difference between wealth building and wealth preservation is kind of like you've had a lot of employees. Is it easier to go get a new employee, or is it easier or more important to retain a good employee? And kind of like a customer. If you already get the customer and you've spent your client acquisition cost is $30 and you have them, don't start over. By golly, keep that one.
Yeah,
I think that's similar with money.
Preservation of good employees is worth so much more. It's huge. It's huge. If you find a good employee, a good person you can work with, they are a diamond. They are a treasure. They are one of the most rarest resources on the planet. You don't just trade those out. Yeah. So you want to talk about this stuff? What's the difference between preservation and building?
Yeah, I think starting with building, which is where I was as a kid growing up. Mom was on welfare and food stamps. We didn't have running water or electricity a lot of my years. We were dirt poor. I got a Pell Grant from the government for college. This is before I was a voluntarist, and I think my mom put $1,000 into it. So that's where I was at age 20-ish. Was nothing, and So then I look at all the multi-gazillionaires that flippantly say, well, you've just got to blah, 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 blah. Well, maybe it's not that easy. Can you just go out and do you have a nice car so that you can get an hour and a half away for a job interview? Or do you have a nice suit or whatever it is? So I completely respect those who are starting with a net worth of less than $10,000 or less than $1,000 and are just trying to build that up. And big respect to you if you're doing that, whether you're age 21 or 61 and have finally said, okay, enough of the nonsense, or you just made a bunch of cool risks and they didn't work out and you're starting over. I think that beginning level of building wealth, the first thing I think is hard work. The entrepreneurs, how many hours are they putting in a week? Are they putting in 40 hours a week and taking 2 weeks off a year?
All of the hours. They're putting in all of the hours.
Absolutely.
You never stop working. Like, nope. If you want to be successful, you can't. Yeah.
Yeah. My friend Nathan made a funny comment the other day. He says, I was suggesting that he watch your show, and he says, I'll do that while I do invoicing. And he says, I might work 100 hours a week, but nobody can tell me when I'm going to work them. And so that is the truth. There's this huge freedom if I work my 100 hours whenever I want to. So I do think that hard work is you're working 7 days a week for the first 10, 20 years of building your wealth. That's what it is. If you want to work 40 hours a week, and that's allows you to spend more time with family and friends and building relationships and doing those kinds of things, wonderful. I'm not looking down on you. You just have a different choice. But 12 years later, when your transmission goes out and you need $5,000 all of a sudden, you'll have a lot of friends and a lot of good relationships, but you're not going to have $5,000. So I think finding the balance that's right for you is kind of important.
I say that often. I say, like, look, there are people out there that don't want to put in more than 40 hours a week. They want a 9 to 5. They want to go home and do family stuff or fun stuff, play video games, whatever. And, usually I say, look, that's fine. You do you, but Tonstoffel, take what you want and pay for it. There is no such thing as a free lunch. If that's the path that you choose, then you're going to take what you want and pay for it in that way.
Yep.
There's a place for both, though. Like, not everybody is the type of person that can put their entire being into their work. It's not for everybody. And in fact,
right.
I almost want to say, like, we need both types of people. Like, we need employees that are just chill doing their stuff and going home. Like, I don't want everybody in my company to be like this, this type A monster that just, like, does that make sense? Like,
absolutely. And there are ways that a person can do very well. Not if you get a bachelor's degree in underwater basket weaving and how it pertains to Native American lesbians. So, like, one of these new woke degrees isn't going to help. But if you really go out and teach yourself how to code, or you become a physician or something else like that, you can do well. Or even without a degree, you go to any organization, you go to the up and coming plumber in your city who now has a staff of 13 people, and you say, hey, I want to get involved in this. You start out as a floor sweeper or secretary or whatever, work your way up, become a manager, start a new division and tell them, hey, I want 20% of the division. So there are ways to be an intrapreneur, not necessarily an entrepreneur where you have to take on all the risk. You can start with nothing. I've never heard that term
before. That's a good term for it. Interesting.
Yeah, I just was reading it in a book, 5 Moves Ahead or something like that, or Thinking 5 Moves Ahead. And it's a brilliant idea. Like, think about Google. They're such a wonderful company. I know you love them, but they said things like, hey, anybody have any cool ideas? And then somebody would have one, and then that person is now a millionaire. So it was Gmail or the calendar. They had various little sub things that they did, and those people are all doing really well. So yeah, it is kind of, you reap what you sow. If you want to have a net worth if you have nothing now and you want to have a net worth of $1 million 15 years from now in today's money, you're not going to get there probably working 40 hours a week and not setting when you get home. But that's okay. If smoking weed or playing video games is more fun, go for it.
You really do reap what you sow. You really do. I have a friend that, like, he's a good guy. He caught a drug-related felony several years ago, got out of prison after several years with a felony on his, on his record. So he can't get a normal job that's profitable. So he started a business doing various sort of construction type work at people's houses and things like that. Like if you need help with your, I don't know, fixing something in your house or doing your AC or whatever, you could call him and he would do it. And then he didn't just do it like at a minimum. He put his everything into it. And so only a year later, he has 3 guys working for him now. I mean, he's still putting his all into it. Like he is like morning from awake to sleep time. He is on the phone, answering calls, taking customers, organizing his guys, spending money, buying the equipment he needs. Like he is 100% allocated to his business. And in only a year, he's already got 3 other people working for him. 3 or maybe 4 now. Like, and he's good at it and he cares. And when I ask him to do something, and if I hire him for something, I am confident that he will do it right, well, on time, and under budget. Like, he is the man. And it's like, it's inspiring. And that's another thing. Like, one of the things I say is find people that inspire you, set them as your goal for yourself, and try and be like them. Find somebody, find a role model, go after it, chase it. Decide who you want to be and bust ass. Bust ass! I think that was on your list, right? No, I think you said it better.
Yeah, that's working hard.
Work hard.
Really work hard. Yeah. Say yeah.
Bust ass.
And so that's kind of the only thing on my list. That's the only thing I put on my list that had to do with really being strenuous and working hard, because that's just kind of a given. And the rest of it is working smart and connections. Meeting everybody that you can, getting to know them, remembering them, that kind of thing. This morning, for our business in the Rocky Mountain West, we interviewed a gal that just moved to our area from Austin, Texas. She's an attorney, and she's between jobs. And right away, and she's not voluntarist, so I didn't pursue this, but right away I thought, ooh, I wonder if Float needs a good attorney. And if I didn't have the connection with her, and I didn't have the connection with, and by the way, I don't mean to brag, but I have an in with Float now. I know a guy named Patrick, and I know a guy named Chuck, so I'm kind of a big deal. But now that I have those 2 connections, if she turned out to be a voluntarist and says, yeah, I'm looking for a new opportunity, well, that wouldn't happen if I hadn't reached out to Patrick when we're walking beside each other in the hallway in Mexico, and if I hadn't interviewed this gal this morning, and if I hadn't hung out with Chuck in Mexico, if I hadn't had those connections, then maybe something that could have been a good thing wouldn't have happened. So I think being a yes person, and my wife says it best. She says, we are yes men. And that is just what we do. Any opportunity out there, oh yeah, we'll do that. Give it a try. We'll fail at it. Hey, learn something from that. But I think it's not, I think connections are probably one of the biggest things. It's who you know, and you don't have to be a bigwig to start making those connections.
I've been trying to build what you're talking about into something like more big-brained and philosophical for years, and I haven't really been able to succeed in doing it. But what I think about is when you first start out working, especially as an entrepreneur, you realize how weak you are in comparison to all the people that are older and have been being entrepreneurs for years and years longer than you. Like, they have a significant advantage just because when they want or need something, they already know and have relationships with the people that they need to call to get the thing that they need done. Or, like, oh, I got a guy for that. I know a person for that. I know exactly who I'll call for that. I already have a relationship. I've used him before. I trust him. I have, like, they know who to trust, who not to trust, who's good, who sucks. They know the reputations of all the people involved. That is huge. This is a really good item that you have on your list for this. Knowing people, having relationships with people is huge. And when you start out, you have none of that. And so you're at a huge disadvantage. And as you grow older and the longer you do it, and the longer you bust ass and meet people, then you become dependable. You put yourself on other people's lists, and you find people that are on your lists, and you grow that. And then I'm like, well, okay. And then we die. Because this is what I think about, right? So it's like it's almost like the great equalizer, because like if nobody ever died, then the old people would just sort of amass more and more and more connections, and we'd never be able to compete with them. But thankfully they die. Oh wait, we die too though. So there's something to be
the old people now.
yeah. And so there's something to be learned in there, and I haven't been able to put the big brain to that yet. But yeah. Yeah, it is all about connections. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And then something else I was thinking of was leveraging. That's huge. Our mentors, we would go out to their gazillion-dollar house and sit there every Wednesday morning for about 2 or 3 hours, and they would talk to us about things. And one of the big things they kept pounding into our heads was leveraging. If you just go out and you do your labor each day, unless your labor is very specialized, if you're the best brain surgeon in the world, okay, you're going to make a few bucks. But if you're not in a very specialized area, then it's all about leveraging, and not just leveraging using tools, but also using people. So if you could put together the right tools and the right people, and then I guess add the right systems to that, and so you develop the systems for the people to use the tools, then you don't have to be there anymore. They're doing it. You kind of just have to make sure the system is running well. And I'm preaching this from a place of humility. About 3 days ago, after our current business this is our 12th season, I finally finished the policy and procedure manual. Well, I should have done that on day 3, but it took me that long to do it. However, now everybody on the crew knows what the expectations are, and they know what the guidelines are. And I didn't do them to say, "Ooh, I busted you. You did that thing. You painted that yellow, and you're supposed to paint it red." No, it's just so they have a resource, and I can go back and say, "Hey, remember, you need to do that." It's for everybody to be on the same page. So I think those systems are important if you are interested in leveraging people.
The systemization. Sorry, go ahead. I'll let you finish. Sorry.
No, you're going to say it right now.
Yeah, the systemization is what I call it. It's when you take something that you normally have to do yourself, and you describe it well enough, you document what you do well enough, you figure out the parts that are repeatable, and you build a process around it, and then you build it in such a way as it's encapsulated and that you can hand to another person that can read your documentation and learn how to use the tools, or put what you were doing into action. And now you are free to work on the next thing, be it a new business idea, be it worrying about meeting people and making connections, worrying about how to bust ass on more things, basically, to add more things to the plate that you couldn't before. Without systematizing stuff, you are that guy that you were talking about in the beginning, where if you don't go to work, you don't make money that day, and you can't grow beyond one until you systematize. You cannot grow beyond yourself, and it's huge. And people don't put enough effort and thought into doing that. Like, if you have something that makes you money today, just take a moment. Think of a way to document whatever you're doing to make money today, systematize it, put it into a package, and then see if you can hire somebody to do it for 10 hours a week. Hand them the system. See if they can do it for you at a small percentage of their time, 10 hours a week or whatever you can afford in the beginning. You keep doing it in parallel so that, there's no risk, but whatever, you've systematized it. And if that's successful, scale it up, get more people, put them on 40 hours a week, hire 5 of them, and then you can move on to the next thing. You can focus on other and new things. Systematization is critical to growing beyond like self-work, right?
Amen. And E-Myth Manager, E-Myth Revisited is the book for that. Just read one of them. He has like 18 of them. He has a system. He wrote the first one, and then now he has E-Myth for dentists, E-Myth for anarchist podcasters, and he's just added a bunch of professions.
Almost like he systematized book writing.
Yeah, it was awesome. And by the way, for anybody
I haven't heard of this book.
Listening, Yeah, E-Myth Revisited. It is just awesome, and it's a quick read. It's I try to do it at least twice a year. It's just a great book. For anybody that's thinking, wait a minute, how am I going to start hiring and having people do these things? Like, I'm not ready for that yet. I'm a new employee. I just started working for a felon who's a handyman. Like, I'm at the beginning stages. Do you think that handyman owner has a full policy and procedure manual for his business? No, he's too busy working it. Yep. So how about every time you run into a problem, you write it down and send it to him and say, hey, I just thought you might want to know I fixed a doorbell the other day. And if anybody else is as silly as be humble, if anybody else is as silly as I am and doesn't know how to do it, this is what I did to test it and see what was wrong. This is how I fixed it. This is the order of the stores that I visited because this is what it costs. Write a policy and procedure manual for the business that you're working in. You're not going to get paid for it. Do that when you get home. You definitely want to put in at least 10 or 20% more time than you're getting paid for. It's an investment. You always do that. You always get to work early, pick up trash in the parking lot. You always don't clock in when you start working. Wait a little while, then clock in. You're always going to add that value. But yeah, I think the systemization of things is just a brilliant way to go.
It's critical. You can't be successful without it. Almost like it's all there. Oh, I think your wife agrees. She says it's critical. Systems are keys. Yeah, system are key. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you hit a certain ceiling, and you're not going to go beyond that unless you do.
The ceiling of your own head. Like, yeah.
Yep. So something else is and this is, again, working smart. We talked just a tiny bit about working hard, but here's working smart. Another way, beyond having good connections, leveraging people and equipment. Next thing I jotted down was finding barriers to entry. And so I'm not wealthy, but we're doing okay. And a few bucks here and there isn't a big deal. So I sold this business 10 years ago or so, but for 4 or 5 years, I had a mobile windshield repair business. And it takes a little over $1,000 to get all of the nice tools set up to go. And once you have those, you can go and work for about an hour and make $50, at least in the Rocky Mountain area where there's a lot of sand on roads for snow. Probably not as good in Austin, except for this last winter, or Dallas, or in here. Southern areas, but in my neck of the woods, you can make about $50 an hour or more doing mobile windshield repairs. You don't have to have a lot of overhead. You just need that $1,000 worth of equipment. That $1,000 is a barrier to entry. If you're thinking right now, I don't have $1,000, guess what? I went out last summer, even though I have no plans to do that as a job again. I have another thing that's way better. I bought all of the equipment. I'm ready to go. If my current business is shut down again, like it was during the panic of 2020 last April, if it's shut down, I have a plan B. I also have plan C, D, E, F. That's a barrier to entry. If you can't afford the $1,000 right now to have that equipment, and I can, guess who's going to be poised to spring ahead when things change? So I guess my advice is think about, and that's a very small example, but think about those barriers to entry. In my other business, we would like to use real estate for our purposes. However, our purposes are going to be different than it's ever been zoned for. The current process is 6 months to 2 years and over $50,000 to get the county to agree that you may do so. That's a barrier to entry. And so that's one that's a little bit above my head. The gazillionaire's daughter is going to be able to say, yeah, we'll just have our attorneys work on it for 2 years and put 50 or 100 grand into it, and then we'll have it. Now Shepard can't compete with them. So I kind of gave an example at a lower level and a higher level. Look around for things that not everybody else can do and put yourself in a position that you can. That'd be my advice on the specialization and kind of finding that barrier to entry and work within it.
This is gold, man. Like, this is the stuff that you would charge people to train them on. Like, I hope you guys are Subscribing to Shepard's YouTube channel, at least.
Or buying my book, Harsh Advice for the Unemployed Guy. And if
There
you
you
can't
go.
afford it, just get a hold of me and I'll send you a copy. I want all of us that are watching Disenthrall right now, I want us to be filthy rich. I will even mentor you a bit myself or help find someone. I have connections. If you want to make stuff work and you're willing to dig deep and work hard and put the time and effort in and not just, well, I tried, but I was feeling sick. You don't get sick. If you think you're going to be sick and have a cold or a flu and not be able to do something, this isn't right for you. Go get a job, be in the E class, be an employee. That's what's right for you. I was reminded of this. I was listening to one of your books on tape, or I think it was the Some Animals Are More Equal, or More Equal Animals, something like that. And one of the recordings, you say, you came on and you're like, oh, I'm feeling horrible today, but we're going to power through this. And you did. You worked through it. You're an entrepreneur, so you don't take sick days. What's a sick day? You never even contemplated that. No, I'm going to get my stuff done, and then I'll go take a break. So
Yeah, and then you realize just how much more power you have, and how much stronger of a being you are when you don't have the excuses of, oh, I have a week of sick time I have to use this year, so I'm a little sniffly today. I'm going to stay home and be sniffly and be a weak little creature that's going to die early. No, like,
yep.
they call it like the farmer's work ethic. That's how I like to think about it. Like, if a farmer gets a fever and says, oh, I'm taking a sick day, I'm not going to harvest my crops, his crops are going to die, and he's going to starve for the winter. He doesn't have the luxury of taking a sick day. It doesn't matter if he's got a fever or not. He's got to harvest the crops today. And so what does he do? He sucks it up, and he does the hard stuff that he needs to do to be successful and to continue living. And so I've really struggled to... not struggled, that's the wrong word. I've worked hard to apply that standard to my life. Like, look, I have to be unconscious to not get up and push myself through the hard stuff, because
Amen.
Why do I do it? Let's talk about that. What about me or you would push us to be the type of person that would not take a sick day? What is different, and what can people embody in themselves? Where does that come from?
For me, I think it's a trained thing. Back when I was a government employee, I would take sick days. I would burn my time up. And if I did feel sniffly, I wouldn't want to go in. So for me, it wasn't nature, it was nurture. And it was self-nurture. It was teaching myself and putting myself in the free market, being an entrepreneur. And my first business fell flat, just horrible, big waste of money and time. But I put myself out there and I did it, and I read the books. And I think by doing that, I kind of realized over time, the people that are getting ahead, interesting. They've never canceled an appointment because they're sick. They've always showed up anyway.
Yeah.
And they're not pansies. Oh, you might get me sick. We better stay home today so we don't spread it. No, go get exposed to the nasties. Unless you've got a special reason not to, go get exposed. Build your immune system up, especially if you're 50 pounds overweight like me. My gosh, you got to take care of your body. Go expose it to nasties so that it gets toughened up and it can handle it if it gets some really bad flu or something. And it's not just COVID or something that you can get over. What if it's a really bad sickness? Build up your immune system so you can handle this stuff. Make yourself tough. That's my thinking.
LG says, could it be a sense of purpose? Maybe that's it. But it's also, it's a desire to be successful, and achieving success in many ways requires pushing through petty shit. And
Yep.
Success is a relative thing. Success is always in comparison to what? And so necessarily, I guess when I say I want to be successful, I guess I'm saying I want to be more successful than most. I think those two are synonymous, right? Is there a way to be successful without comparing yourself to something else that is less successful or not successful? I don't know. Maybe not. But I want to get ahead in life. I want to have more wealth and comfort and and power, as Shepard was talking about earlier. If I have wealth, then I have the ability to amplify my influence and my ability to affect the world around me. So it's a desire to power is probably the wrong way to put it, but I will be more effective as a person to influence me, the people around me, the world around me, if I'm successful than I would be otherwise. I will also have less barriers to happiness and things that make me happy if I have success and wealth, right? So, what's a good example of that? I really like folk music and sea shanties. I'm learning the guitar right now just because, I have so much free time. And what's the purpose? What's the purpose of learning to play the guitar? Well, what's something I really love doing? What brings me a lot of peace is to get out on a sailboat, and it's not easy. It's actually like you have to bust ass to sail. Like it's physical labor, but it's my chill time. That's where I want to be. Owning a sailboat costs some money. If I want that kind of time available, if I want that activity available in my life, I got to put some resources together to make it happen. I haven't. I'm on my way to that. We'll see. Hopefully, it'll be soon. But that is a goal in my life. One of my earlier goals, when I was in my 20s, one of my first life goals was to own a Corvette. It was my dream car. So I said that is my goal. I will. That will be my marker of success of this phase in my life. How quickly can I hit that goal was the challenge to myself. And I think I was 28. So it wasn't quite as early as I wanted it to be, but 28 was pretty good. So I got the Vet, and I even had carbon fiber numbers put on the doors, big racing numbers. 28 was my Corvette's number, because that was my goal. Achievement unlocked. What's next? Set the next goal. Bust ass. Get to the next goal. If you're not doing that, what are you okay? Do you just want to go through life? You just want to float through life and, hit your expiration date one day and okay. I guess that's an option.
Yeah.
You do you.
And I think it's not even a bad option. Yeah. Yeah. It's not even a bad option. I would defend the people who frustrate me so much, who don't have that oomph for that motivation. I think about the things that I hear people say, what do you do today? Or it's weekend. And I'm like, well, how do you know it's weekend? I guess if you looked at the date or the day of the week, but I don't have weekends. Like there's Saturdays and Sundays are no different than any other day. And what do you do today? Well, I went out hiking. I'm like, wow, you just went out for fun and walked around for 2 hours? That's really cool. I'm a little bit jealous of them. And I do my own things. I'm not saying that I still work 16-hour days every day, but there's something to be said about going out and enjoying time with your family and creating memories. And so that could be a choice. I guess my big encouragement would be to think about what's important to you. And if monetary stuff isn't, and you're okay with having something bad happen at some point that could cost you $1,000 or $100,000 or $1 million, and you're okay with having to rely on others, then don't go through the heartache and the headache and the sweat and the blood that Patrick and I are talking about. I mean, it's a different choice. It doesn't make you bad. Just know that it's going to be a little bit tough on us when we remember you talking about your playtime when we were working, and then now 3 years later, you're asking us for money for a transmission. You got to have the fun. We didn't. We made the money, so that money now isn't yours, and we're not morally inferior if we choose not to buy you a transmission.
Yeah.
We both had that option to save up in case something like that would ever happen, and it will. Bad stuff will happen.
Bad stuff will happen. Like leukemia is about a $1.3 million operation for a child. Just to put a number on it. 1.3, guys. So we can either let that crush us, or we can bust ass and be more prepared to handle it. What kind of life do you want? Well, I want to be resilient. Yep. I want to be able to take the worst that life can throw at me and survive it. I want to outlive it. I want to conquer the suffering that life throws at me. To the greatest extent I possibly can. Lynn says, might success be relative? How do you define success? What is that worth to you. Yeah, that's relative. Sure. And I think we're talking about that, right? Like, if that's not the life you want to live, then you do you, I guess. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to why a person wouldn't want to be more autonomous. Maybe that's a word. I want to be autonomous. I want to be self-sufficient. I want to be fulfilled. I want to be, all this stuff requires resources. Even if it's not the money, even if it's not the dollar signs in those terms, what about retirement? Like, you want to live from the age of 60 to 100. In what condition do you want those years to be in? Do you want them to be in comfortable conditions, or do you want them to be in a one-bedroom efficiency, or do you want them to be in a government-paid-for nursing home? Like, the choice is yours, but the time to make that choice is 20 years ago. The second best time to make that choice is immediately. So, like, well said. You make the. I think you said that to me in our last show, right? The best time to make the choice.
I'm not that smart. That's awesome.
I don't know who said that, but I think that's really good. Like, make the choice and now on how you want those years to go, because what you do now will dictate what you are. You can't make the decision then. It doesn't work like that. That's not life.
Yep. On my list, I had next, just thinking ahead of what's going to happen in the world. And I was thinking about investing a few $1,000s into leatherworking tools. When I had my first real job, I was 13 or 14 years old, and I was making 75 cents an hour, but I was working in a leather shop, and I worked there for a little over a year. And then when I was 16, I worked full time at a taxidermist place. So I know a little bit about leather and taxidermy, and there's some similarities, sewing dead animal skin. And so I thought, well, I'm better than 99% of my neighbors at leather work, even though I haven't done it in a long time. So maybe I should buy leatherworking tools so that I would have that as my plan C, D, E, F. And then I started thinking, what are we moving toward as a world? Who is in charge of the world, and which direction is it headed? And we know that the United Nations and then groups like that are largely in control of the direction that at least the mainstream is going. So we're going for a plant-based diet. We're going for fewer animal products. We're going for more bicycles. We're going for everyone moving into cities. And so if all of that is happening, leather probably isn't going to be kind of like a buggy whip maker. There's not that many jobs making buggy whips now, and it could be the same with leather. So what might be smarter? What does the man want you to do? The man wants you to ride a bicycle. Well, maybe something in the bicycle industry would be a great business to start, job to get into. I guess what I'm saying is, look into the future. What do you think the trends are going to be? And I would not get real skilled at being a coal miner at this point. No offense to Sherry in my home state of Tennessee. Those folks don't have a very bright future.
Yeah.
If that's the only skill they have.
Yeah, Liberty After Dark said he finds it to be an extension of a desire for self-betterment. Those who want to be better people tend to be those who want to better themselves in as many ways as possible. The Real Bogart says, I want my family to be healthy so they don't cost me a mill in medical bills. Sorry, you don't get that choice. That's not a choice you get. Sorry. And Gunk Slinger says that's an old African saying. Oh, the thing I said. It's an old African saying about the best time to plant a tree if you need wood is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Yeah.
I like it.
I'd forgotten where that came from.
There's a book out there, The Richest Man in Babylon, and it's a great book, but I would say don't read it. I'm going to boil it down to this. Save 10% of everything you earn. So if you're paycheck to paycheck or whatever it is you do, save 10%. And you get paid first. The electricity doesn't get paid first. The apartment rent, the landlord doesn't get paid first. You get paid first. As soon as the dollars come into your bank account, I guess that's how they're doing it now, not paychecks. But as soon as they go into your account, immediately take 10% out and somehow put it into a savings or investment. You deserve that. Do that immediately. And if you put 1/10 of your annual income into a somewhat liquid, you're able to get to it quickly is kind of what liquid means. You put it into something liquid. And after a year or two, even if you're not making that much, now you're going to have that kind of leverage to be able to buy a windshield repair kit. And instead of making $10 an hour flipping burgers, now you have the tools that you can leverage into making $50 an hour. Or if you're in a big city down south, maybe $20 an hour. That still beats your $10 an hour job. And if you hadn't been saving the money, you couldn't have gone and just paid cash for this capital investment for your new business. So saving money is huge, I think. Not in Federal Reserve notes. That's not a good idea, probably, but in some way saving that value. And then I think reading books. That's the other thing. We haven't talked about wealth preservation, but for building, I think reading books, watching videos on Odysee, or if you have to go for more of a second-rate video platform like the Tube of Views, wherever it is, watch videos, learn things. Here's one that if you want to start a business, watch this 30-minute video. Donald Miller, he was a guest on the Dave Ramsey show, and he talks about one-liners. So if you put some of those words into a search engine, you're going to find a half-an-hour video, one-liners with Donald Miller on the Dave Ramsey show. That half-hour show, I would trade that for a one class, a whole semester of a class in your business degree. That one video is worth it. So seek out that good information. Don't get hooked on the charismatic, potty-mouthed person who's jumping around and is exciting. Watch them. They probably have good points, but watch a bunch of different people who might have some good information to give.
What about mentoring?
Gosh, that's so important. And being able to listen to it and hear that harsh advice and be humble about it and grow from it. And what I have discovered is that right when I'm first mentored on something, I don't usually get it at that point. It's later that it really sinks in, and I go, oh, that I remember now that person said that. That does make sense. But I think there's so many lessons in life.
Yeah, find somebody. Ask them to be your mentor. Meet with them once a week or once a month, and just ask for 30 minutes of their time. And if they'll be generous enough to give you 30 minutes, if they're successful, that will be difficult. That will be quite the gift. Trust me, there are people that I would love to ask for 30 minutes once a month from, that I will never get that time. But talk through what you have going on. What your problems are, how they would handle it. That's the question. How would you handle this? How would you deal with that? What do you think about this situation or this conflict? I guarantee you they will have insights that will help you immensely. Find those people.
And I'm telling you right now, if you don't have somebody, you can find somebody way better than me. But if you haven't yet, I will do that for you. If you're a voluntarist, you're watching this show, I'll do that. Maybe your next decision is, holy cow, I need to find a much better mentor, but at least you'll have learned something from it. And so I'll make that offer. And if it isn't me, I'll help find you somebody. Do that. That is very, very important.
That is a huge offer that Shepard just made, ladies and gentlemen. So I guess we'll see how serious people are at taking you up on that, and I hope they appreciate it. As Lynn says,
and don't mess with your person. And if you do get a mentor, don't mess with them. Don't ask them a question. Do you think I should buy more lottery tickets and cigarettes this week, or should I put that money into savings? And if they tell you don't buy more lottery tickets and cigarettes, and then they see you the next day buying lottery tickets and smoking cigarettes, if you're not willing to take the advice, don't waste people's time.
Yeah.
But if you are, then I think people are pretty generous.
Yeah. I had a guy that was mentoring me in sort of morning meditation think time for a while. And, once a month I would check in with him and be like, hey, I've been doing it this way, and this is working and that's not working. And this doesn't really feel like my style. I need to change it up. I'm not a hippie. It was just like this back and forth over time. And he gave me ideas and I made them my own. And now I have my own morning routine that really works for me, that, that was thanks in large part to this guy. And it was a huge gift of the person to spend that time with me and to take the time to improve my life to no benefit of his own other than the self-gratification of helping somebody else out. Like, that's what it is often. Like, you want to help people get through the times that, like, I didn't have the benefit of a lot of advice when I was starting out. And so, like, I really get a lot of gratification, and, like, it makes me feel good to help other people, have an easier time than I did. So, evil capitalist things, right? Like,
yeah, that's what we do, right? And so, yeah, we just want to hurt everybody and take all of their money
and pull the ladder up behind us,
Interesting you mentioning that. I started a mastermind group about 2 years ago, and I got lazy and didn't keep it up. But we're sitting around the table. I only got successful entrepreneurs who have had some success, and we would all sit there and we would talk about our goals and such. Guess what? Almost everyone said, what do we really want? Okay, once we get the money, once we get as many homes as we want, as many cars and yachts and airplanes, or whatever it was we wanted, what do we really want to do with our time? Because we're still going to have just as much time if we're not working 80 hours a week. Okay, we've arrived. Now what? All of us, except one person, said, we wrote down on our list, we want a mentor. We want to help other people who are starting out in business get to the next level. And you're not going to get Jeff Bezos. He is mentoring somebody who's struggling and just barely making 10 million a year. But the person who's struggling and making 10 million a year is helping the 1 million a year person, and that person's helping the next, and so on. I think people are going to be very willing to help. If you reach out to somebody who you know and respect, who's really making it happen, and you say, hey, I promise not to waste your time. I'm going to have a notebook with me, and I'm going to take notes as you're talking to me. Do that. Show them you care, that you're taking it seriously. Say, I'd like to sit down with you for half an hour a month. You're going to be amazed at the opportunities they open up to you.
There's a deeper point about capitalism here that I think bears being restated or made more clear. If the pie was finite and everybody was fighting over their piece of a fixed amount of pie, you would not see this behavior. Like, people would not want to help grow competition for themselves at all, ever. But it's not like that. The pie is not a fixed size. Wealth is created. The pie gets larger as more people become more successful and as society grows. So it's not a threat to me when I mentor people or when I give advice or when other people help me grow my business. It's not a threat to them because it's not a fixed pie, which is a big philosophical misunderstanding. Or I don't think it's a misunderstanding. I think they're just wrong. The left is really, really wrong about how the laissez-faire free market works. And that is an evidence of it. That what we're talking about, the willingness to mentor, is evidence that it's not the fixed pie that they say it is.
Yep.
All right.
And I think I agree with you that what we're talking about is gold. I think it's very helpful to people. And I realize that I have blabbered far longer than we probably planned for this segment. I have a whole nother little segment on wealth preservation.
I'm having a blast.
You want to save that for another time and get to other topics? You want to keep going on it?
No.
Okay.
Do not save it. Let's do it.
Okay. So for wealth preservation, don't fall for scams. That's the first big thing. If you have that money, that's the easiest way to let stuff go. Don't let it go to scams. Multi-level marketing is not a bad thing. It's a brilliant system for getting word out about a product. If you're in the top 1 or 2 or 3 people. If you are way down the list, be savvy. If you get into the multi-level marketing program, which is if you don't have a lot of money and you're getting started, that's kind of the person that I'm talking to right now. If you look up small businesses that don't take a lot of money to get started, you're going to find businesses you can start with no money at all. And it's Patrick's secret sauce. And if you take this, you're going to be able to, you'll get in great shape and you'll be able to run really fast and become a part of this fast growing company with this proprietary liquid that you drink, and it costs nothing to get into it. Sign up here. And then you sign up. Well, if you're really serious about your success, are you? Do you want to have a Corvette before you're 30? Do you really want to be successful? Well, if you do, for $299, we have an advanced training program that will sell you blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that their secret sauce is bad, but that is a big scam that's out there. Look up on your search engine, go to DuckDuckGo, or if you have another one that you prefer, I guess Brave is coming out with one soon. Go to your favorite search engine and look up 10 most common scams. There's an idea. Don't fall for any of those. That was some quick and easy research.
Yeah.
Spend an hour doing that. And then you're going to know if that Nigerian prince gets a hold of you and wants to give you $18 million. Hey, that's not a good idea. So be aware of the scams that are out there. And it's not just dummies that are taken on this. Nathan and Lisa from Anarchapulco. That was something Roger Ver talked about. Somebody claimed to be Roger Ver and got a hold of Nathan Freeman and said, hey, I want a bunch of money. I need it for something. And Nathan's thinking, oh, hell, I'll help Roger Ver out, and sends a huge portion of their life savings completely gone. It was a scam artist doing this thing. So be aware of that. If Patrick gets a hold of you and says that he's a hotel in Bangkok and he just needs $1,000 wired to him, know about that scam and don't do it. Get a hold of him on something trustworthy like Telegram or Signal or something, and make sure it's him and that's what he needs. Don't fall for scams.
Yeah, red flags are things like, I need help moving money around. No one needs help moving money around. Another one is, I'm going to sell you a business plan. No, you're the customer. Like, you are being sold a product, not a business. I have this business that's super successful, and you can buy in to be a salesperson. No, you're paying to work for somebody else. That's backwards. No one offering you a job should ever want you to pay them. That's backwards. Yeah. So those are and oh man, it hurts my soul when one of my friends approaches me to sell me, like, here in Texas, it's like they sell electrical service, and that there's a thing going around with that. Like, I wouldn't say it's as bad as some of the worst MLM schemes, but they'll call me and be like, hey, how's your what rate are you paying on your electrical bill? I'm like, oh god, here we go. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. My soul is dying. Stop. No. Yeah, because they get sold with like, you can sell this product and you can do all this legwork and find all this customers and exploit your entire family tree and friend pool. And, you'll be able to make residual income every month from whatever they pay on their electric bills. And then you do all this stuff. You exploit all of your relationships, and you end up making, $50 a month or whatever. And
yep. And how much did that program cost when you bought it? 990 what? 997. So that is a current thing going around. I'm not saying it's bad, but basically how the how the thing works is Patrick says, hey, I'm kind of a big shot podcaster, Odysee kind of guy. Do you want to be successful like me? I'm going to tell you all of my tricks. Give me your email address, and I will immediately send you a free confidential report with the 10 most important things. And then you give him your email address. He sends you that report, and you go, wow, that was really some good value. And then he says, for those of you that are really serious about this and want to hit the big time, send me $997 for my program that I will walk you through a step. You're going to get a video every single day for 6 months. I will walk you through how to do this. And I'm not saying that he would be wrong about what he tells you, but just so you know, he's sitting down and recording 30 of those videos in one sit down. His virtual assistant from the Philippines, who uses the awesome service that John started, onlinejobs.ph. If you're an entrepreneur, You need to know that. You can hire people who work in the Philippines that cost $5-6 an hour. They are thrilled to get the money. You're helping make their lives richer, and many of them do a good job. But anyway, that person is taking Patrick's 1 hour that he recorded and turning it into 30 videos. Then he records another hour. Well, now he has months worth of content. He's doing nothing, and this is what you're getting for $997. You could have just gone onto Odysee and looked up tips on being a good salesman. And the information would have been right there. You don't need to pay $997.
You don't see Bezos doing an interview on CNN saying, yeah, boy, how did that? I just bought in for $997 and boom, Amazon.
Yep.
Doesn't work like that. It does not work like that.
Amazon, pay me that.
In 6 months of my classes, you'll have an Amazon. If he sold that, people would buy it like crazy, and there would still only be one Amazon 6 months from now.
Yep.
What else? What's next?
Not investing in emotional ideas from friends.
Oof.
So if your friend comes to you and says,
I've
come up with this
whole
idea.
This whole show, guys, this whole show is amazing, valuable advice. I really hope that you guys are paying attention. Sorry to interrupt you.
No. And if you want to watch it again, just send Patrick $997.
I'll chop the show up into 30 episodes and send you one a week.
So this thing, investing in friends, kind of look at it from a bank standpoint. Banks' jobs are to make money. If the bank wouldn't invest in their idea of starting up an essential oils business, then the bank wants to make money. And the bank has real professionals who've seen a lot of businesses make it and a lot more fail. They have seen the 90% who fail, and they've seen the 10% who succeed. And they have looked at your friend's business and said, no, we don't want to loan the money at 1% interest. If they're saying that, that's a clue. You just got a free professional evaluation of your friend's business. Then I would say, if your friend wants this money from you, talk to them, find out more about it, ask them if they're open to some mentoring. If you're able to mentor them, go for it. If they say, no, I don't believe in any of that stuff, we're going to take the world by storm. You know what? There are over 7 billion people who drink water every day, and this is a water-based process. If we can only sell 1% of those people, no, that's not the real deal. So if you can't give them advice, encourage them to seek out someone who can. If you have play money, there's nothing wrong with taking a flyer and helping somebody out. And I guess this would be a time to talk about failing businesses. If you haven't had a business before, go fail one. Go get it done. Fail 2 or 3 of them. And don't do it with your best idea. Save that idea. You need to go out and through the school of hard knocks, you need to learn things. And I mentioned earlier, when I got out of law enforcement, my first business, it was a caretaking / security business, because my background in law enforcement, executive protection, I had a very impressive resume. I looked like a real tough guy. And I got out and planned to have this business going. Unfortunately, my wife is an entrepreneur. She had the money to support me doing this. So she let me just go out and do it. And we didn't, she didn't give me an allowance, but I spent about $20,000 marketing this business and 10 months of my life. And our gross income was probably $2,000 or $3,000. That's not good math. I failed that thing big time. Now, one of the things I learned through that was, if you're going to get a car magnet to advertising your business on the side of the car, if you can't read it at 100 yards distance, the writing's too small. Well, I made that $60 per side of the car mistake. You think I'm ever going to do that again? No, you might. And that $60 is more precious to you now than it is to me. Back then, it was very precious to me. All of those mistakes, make them while they're cheap. Start up a pooper scooper business in your neighborhood. And then when you get the city coming to you and saying, no, you have to have a business license to do this. Okay, well, now you learned that you either need to play with a man or circumvent the man. And then you buy a cheapo pooper scooper picker upper and it breaks in 3 days. Well, now you've learned the lesson about buying at least mid-grade equipment for commercial use. There are all these little lessons that the books have them, the free videos have them, but you're not going to learn them unless you experience them. And go do it while it's cheap. Put a few $100 into starting a business up. The first thing you're going to want to do is go get business cards. You don't need them. Don't get business cards. Don't worry about what logo looks like. Don't worry about your business name, especially for this first practice business or second practice business. Don't do any of that. You're not allowed to do those things until you've made $500. That's my rule for you. I've done that before. Oh, look at me. I've got a business. I'm the CEO. Look at me. No, don't do that until you have some time and you've made some money.
Yep. My first business, the first thing I did was design the logo. Man, it was a badass logo. Oh man, the logo was the best part of that business. Business cards, plaque on the wall with the business name, with the business card stuck in the plaque, with the foundation, with the founding document like framed with the business card, with the logo. Did I mention the logo? And yeah, that was my second least successful business to date.
Yep. And when you start an LLC, which I suggest you do, or some sort of, we're in the concentration camp, and there are certain rules that they have so that you will not be treated as poorly. And the reason I bring up, and that's an extreme example, and it's not fair to the poor people who had a really, really tough time compared to us. However, I'm saying that we're not living in a free market society. And nobody that's alive right now has. It is a controlled market, and there are many things in place that, as libertarianish type people like we are, our impulse is to say, well, I'm not getting a business license. I'm not playing along with the man. Okay. But just know that there are going to be some problems if you don't, or if you don't pay taxes, or if you go for the sovereign man thing, that you're not a corporation and you don't capitalize your name and you sent in some documents. And so therefore, okay, just know that people who do that generally aren't very successful in business. So if proving a point is more important, go for it. But if being successful in business is more important, then know that you have to play with the devil. And if you have such a strong, principled, resolute concept in your head, you have that kind of strength as a human being, and you say, no, I'm not going to do it. I am not going to drive on their roads. I was going to go into the ditch digging business, but I'm not going to buy a shovel because those shovels are transported across government roads. I'm not going to be involved at all. I'm going to have utmost respect for you. But you also can't fix your transmission when it goes out. So,
well, there's other more practical reasons why it's a self-defensive maneuver to play the game to a certain extent. Play it on defense, right? So, like, if you need to get a patent, just use it defensively only. Don't go after other people with it. If you need to get a business license to cut hair, you can use a business license, but don't go around reporting people without business licenses. But, if you don't get one, then potentially you could have guns pointed at you if somebody does report you. So it's a defensive maneuver. What else? You're not going to get investment from anybody without being like a legit corporation. You're not going to get insurance, which is going to leave you liable and in a dangerous place. For all sorts of things. Like there's a game in play, and there are defensive maneuvers that are not unethical that you can take. It's the same argument for like the driver's license to the sovereign citizen types. It's like getting a driver's license is not consenting to jack or shit. It's just you defending yourself against people pointing guns at you for using your property in ways they don't like. Okay, what's next?
My next item here is inflation. And this is where you, as a wacko bananas libertarianish type Austrian economist kind of person, have an advantage over the mainstream folks who have more money than you do. You know that inflation is coming. you know that the U.S. Federal Reserve note is not going to keep its value long term. The people who live a few doors over just randomly select them. Yes. You go talk to those people. They don't realize how volatile it is. You do. So use that to your advantage. Don't go into, like I would say, don't sit on a bunch of money at this point. Put that money, those US dollars, into some other type of value. And what I would love to hear on Disenthrall sometime, and I should not be involved because I am so ignorant, but my wife and I have talked about getting involved in cryptocurrency, but there are a lot of scams out there. There are a lot of people who have buddies who just started up this new thing, and this is the time to get in, and maybe it's a scam, and I don't know. I would love to hear a segment from one of the brilliant folks who knows this stuff, and I know you have studied it some as well, Patrick. If you have your money in something like Monero or, I don't know, Dash or something like that, and I don't know that the goods or the bads, the technical aspects, but that could be a safer place to have it. And it might not be. Gold might be a good place to have it. Silver might be a good place. Checking your local classified ads and buying an old chainsaw that's still in good shape and having a chainsaw. That might be a good store of value. Now, this is not wealth growth. Buying a chainsaw or buying a silver mercury dime from 1960 before it was changed to junk metal. What are those now? At $2 or something like that. That is not something that will probably make you a ton of money. However, that's two of those dimes today will buy you a nice caramel latte with skinny milk and 2 sweet and lows mixed in, if you know the proper fancy drink to drink. It will buy that for you today, and it will also buy it for you in 50 years, whereas your $4.50 Federal Reserve notes won't. So that would be a way to store value, probably not grow value, maybe, but it would at least be a way to store value. None of this that we're saying is financial advice. We're not qualified, certified, government-approved financial planners. Do your own research. These are just ponderings that are popping around in my head. What are your thoughts on that, Patrick? Do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, it's a personal subjective risk evaluation to decide between crypto and fiat and all the other investment store of value vehicles. The fiat is I can't tell you what it is because it's a subjective personal judgment. Personally, I look at the graphs and I see a large part of the rise in the value of Bitcoin being due to the decline in the value of the dollar due to inflation. Like if you look at the graphs, there's a bit of a correlation there. Like it's potentially possible that if the supply of the U.S. dollar had stayed the same over the past 5 years, that Bitcoin wouldn't have had the massive booms that it's had, at least not to the extent. It would have gone up some, but not nearly the extent that it has. But it's still very volatile. And well, I don't want to digress into Bitcoin too much, but it's still a version 1 tech. Like Bitcoin, BTC is version 1 of the technology. I have no faith that version 1 of any technology will be around for any amount of time. I mean, I'm sure Bitcoin will exist, but in terms of its valuation, it could be subsumed overnight as soon as there's an opinion change, as soon as there's some news article out there that just changes everybody's mind because it's so persuasive. Like anything can happen with this stuff. So I'm not going to give financial advice in that area. Make your own decisions, but just know that they are actively working to destroy the US dollar as always, and they're doing it faster and faster. So what's next?
Hire an accountant as your defender against theft. So there is a professional bodyguard in our financial system, and that bodyguard is a CPA. That is an accountant. Who is most likely to steal from you? Like how much have you had taken out of your car because you forgot to lock it up in the last year? How much have you had taken from you against your will by the tax man? if you are, I mean, in most of our cases, we're having a lot of money taken by the tax man, and not much is stolen from our cars. If so, it's $1,000 or $2,000, but it's not the serious money that the tax man takes. So there are people who know how to deal with the tax man. And if you are making $13,000 a year working full time and you're doing a 1040 EZ tax return, you don't really need the tax man so much. But if you start getting a business going, get a CPA, go talk to them, learn what the ins and outs are, and it will be well worth your investment. Every wealthy person that I know of spends a lot of money very gladly on their good CPA, and they don't go for the bargain basement one. They go for the hot one. So I would say that if you're going from making $20,000 a year at McDonald's and your next step up is you start a business and you're not making any money yet, don't get a CPA. But then when that business starts to make you $2,000 a month and you're like, whoa, now this is making more than my day job. Now it's time, even if it's only going to be a $24,000 a year, go spend a couple $100. And at the first visit, go see one of the cheapest one you can find to get some basic advice. Then as your business grows and now it's $50,000 a year and $100,000 a year, now go find out who the truly successful people in town, the people who have companies that are making a lot of money, go find out who their CPAs are, use them. There's a reason that they're using them. They're finding the little things that are saving them from having as much money stolen each year. And that is preserving wealth, is not having it stolen. Finding ways to work things so that you're legally above board. Taxman knows it. You're being straightforward, but there are a lot of things that affluent people take advantage of that I certainly didn't for many years, foolishly. So get a good accountant.
Yeah, there's a dearth of good liberty-loving accountants. Like, I would love to go meet with an accountant that's like, yeah, so here's the theft, and here's how I'm going to protect you against it. Like, I just can't find one. Like, I want to find the Stefan Kinsella of accounting, you know, the intellectual property lawyer, Stefan Kinsella, that, you know, actively works against intellectual property as a thing. Like, I want to find the tax accountant that's like, yeah, fuck these thieves. Let's stick it to them, you know. So if you know of any of those, please let me know. I would love to look them up for sure.
We actually use a bookkeeping firm, not our primary CPA, but a bookkeeping firm that we use. And Lynn is awesome. She doesn't write on paychecks. She doesn't write income withholding or whatever. She writes productivity theft or something to that effect. She writes the word theft there. And
Good
the
job.
gal loves it, who
Good
runs
job.
the firm. Yeah. And she loves it. She's like, yeah, everybody should do that. And so that's on all our official documentation is income theft, I think she calls it. Yeah, income theft. So that's
awesome.
We found one good start to that.
My mom in the chat, everybody say hi to Cynthia, everybody. She asks,
Hi, Cynthia.
Other than Bitcoin, what are other options that you would suggest to protect it from inflation?
Don't you wish there was a REIT, a real estate investment trust, or an index fund for Bitcoin, not for Bitcoin, for cryptocurrencies? And you could have the smartest minds that I know I'm not. And I shouldn't even say smart. I'm not dumb, but I'm not knowledgeable in the crypto space. And I don't know if this new Ethereum is better for the reasons that the really smart, geeky guy is saying so. I don't know if I can trust him or not. Or not even, he's not even trying to fool me. I just don't know what he's talking about. He's using big words and calling me a fool if I don't understand him. I have no clue. I wish that there could be a few people on this, in this company, this index fund of sorts, that I trust, have Larkin Rose on there to say, okay, I know these guys, they're trustworthy, they're solid human beings, they're not pulling scams. And then some of the brainiacs that are into cryptocurrencies that are actually saying, okay, these are the pros and cons, kind of diversify a mutual fund of sorts. I really wish that existed. And Cynthia, if you find one before I do, let me know, because I am completely lost. That's why I'm scared to put anything into it. Is I don't know what's good or bad or what's going to go up or down. I don't know. So yeah, it's a challenge.
Not financial advice, I use cryptocurrency because I see it as the anti-inflation. It's the only really hard anti-inflationary, hard to manipulate instrument that's out there. But I could be wrong, so I'm not giving financial advice because crypto is so volatile. Like, I don't want to be responsible for that. What's next? Let's see.
Let's talk about tolerance, risk tolerance. Okay. And this is something that if you go to any financial advisor, they are going to say, okay, you're 21 years old, you have a whole life ahead of you. Let's get really risky because things could turn out really great. And if they don't, we'll start over at age 25 or 35 and you'll still have plenty of time to grow your wealth. If, on the other hand, you're an old man like me, you don't want to put all of your life savings into something that could completely crash tomorrow and you could be left penniless. You want to have something much more solid. Like I'm thinking somebody who builds chairs. There'll probably be chairs around in 10 years. So a chair company would be a better investment for an older person than perhaps cryptocurrency or the new blockchain technology. You don't know about that stuff, and who knows what's going to happen. Let the young people do that more, and knowing your risk levels. It doesn't just have to do with age. You can do segments of it. If I had $10,000 I wanted to invest, and maybe I would put 1,000 into something that was very high risk, high return, and then I would put 60% into something that was much safer, and then the rest into something that was kind of mid-grade. But don't put your into really, really high risk things. Don't put your whole bundle into those. Just don't do that. Know your risk. Know how much you're willing to go, how much you're willing to lose. I like what somebody said. If you're going to have to say to your spouse, honey, sit down, I need to talk to you about something. If it's going to be that serious, don't do it at high risk. Like, think about how that serious conversation, if you don't want to have that serious conversation that you lost it. For me, if I put $10 into something, I'm not going to have to say, hey, Lynn, I've got something I have to admit. I did something really stupid, because it's $10. We don't care. If I did that with $10,000, that would be a problem. So kind of put it past that, sitting at the dining room table with your loved one and having a difficult conversation. And if it kind of makes you queasy, maybe it's too high risk for your personal tolerance level.
I feel like I've made you just talk and like host my show for an hour and 15 minutes. So you've been doing a lot of instruction, and it's been really good stuff. Let me take the reins for a little bit and maybe talk about something, if that's cool with you.
Please.
Okay. Yeah. Take a break. So, what I wanted to talk about for today's show is another sort of personal improvement topic, because in the last show that I did, we talked about seeking out. I'm getting my shows mixed up. So in the morning think time videos, for those that are subscribed to that channel, Disenthrall has an alternate channel now called Disenthrall 2, TOO. Disenthrall 2 Think Time, and every morning I do philosophy readings. Right now we're reading Seneca, which is a seminal Stoic philosopher, and so every morning we do 15-minute little readings. And at the end of the reading, I just spend like 2 minutes talking about what I'm focusing on that day. And every day I try and have a thought for the day for myself. Everything I do in these morning think time videos is for Patrick. It's not about y'all, it's about me, and I just hit live stream. Okay? So let's set our expectations. But every day I try and have a theme or something to think about for the day, something to make myself a better person. And yesterday or the day before, the topic of the think time, the thing that I'm thinking about for the day was, I I had somebody on this channel recently reach out and request to have a conversation about God. And you probably saw that video recently. I think it was the most recent video on the channel. Mm-hmm. It was an hour-long conversation with somebody that was a theist, and it was a super calm conversation by a really brave guy that was really looking to have his beliefs challenged. I was so just reminded and inspired by that attitude. Like, I try and do this every day, and I put myself out there every single day. If you think I'm wrong, if you know something I don't, not only do I hope that you contact me, I will seek you out. I want you to come talk to me on the show, especially on the show, because if we do it live or if we record it, then it's not just me benefiting, but maybe other people can benefit it. Whether I'm right or wrong, we all benefit. That's the point. And so I was just super inspired by that. So that was the thought of the day. Today's thought of the day was the other side of that, something that I have to do with myself often, and I wanted to talk through it. It's scary to put yourself out there. It's uncomfortable to put yourself out there, to go looking for people that think you're wrong. There's a strong base level discomfort involved in that. Like, that's where all the nastiness on Twitter and Facebook and social media comes from. When you make a statement and then somebody in your comment says, you are 100% wrong. What's wrong with you thinking that stupid thing? Like, a big part of the feeling you get when you read that comment or that response is, half of it's probably just like, okay, well, I've got an asshole here. We've got an asshole here, everybody. But the other part of that is, wow, what if I am wrong? Oh, I'm being confronted by being wrong publicly. Oh, what a cringe that is. And I do that like almost every day. We've got somebody on the Discord server, the Matrix server, the YouTube comments somewhere telling me that I'm wrong. Every day I'm confronting this feeling. So I've developed a system for how I handle it to keep my perspective in line with my goal. What is my goal? My goal, as I've said many times, I want to know as many true things as I can, and I want to know as few false things as I can believe. I want to believe as many true things and believe as few false things as I can. And that goal is incompatible with that cringy, icky feeling that I was just describing where, oh, am I wrong? Did I just make a YouTube video, making a statement, telling people how it is, and I was wrong? Like, oh, like that, what a kick in the gut. And what's worse, and now I'm about to have a conversation that's going to be recorded and published where I'm proven wrong. Like, what if everything I've been talking about on this channel for the past 7 years is wrong? Oh, that might happen in this conversation. It might. It really might. Every single time I debate somebody, that is a possibility. Oh, that's hard. Anyway, I'll stop describing and moaning. But how I deal with that is I asked myself a series of questions, and I wrote them down here because I wanted to talk through them. I ask, sitting with that feeling, that icky, uncomfortable feeling, I ask, what about or what in my life would have to be changed if I was wrong and X turned out to be true? Let's identify those things, because identifying the outcome or the damage or the result of your being wrong on something kind of helps take away some of the fear, because you're actually thinking through, okay, well, maybe nothing would really change day to day. So if I'm wrong, then I just, I learned something new and nothing, it's not like I have to, I don't know, change my name or something. Like, it's not going to be that big a deal. Or maybe it is something serious. Maybe it's like previously I thought doing this was perfectly acceptable, but I just found out that, man, I think it's a crime. And if I'm wrong, then I'm going to have victims behind that. And you're like, okay, well, let's think through what happens then. Do I have to kill myself? No. So maybe it's not that bad. Maybe we can work through this. You know what I mean? The next thing I ask myself is, this is the more interpersonal side. So, like, who would I have to contact to have a conversation with to say, hey man, guess what? I was wrong. And remember that conversation? Remember that time we talked about it and I said you were wrong? Well, guess what? I found out it was actually me. I was wrong. And here's why I discovered I was wrong. And so I just wanted to kind of contact you to let you know I was wrong about that. And I wanted to set that right. Okay, well, that's kind of an uncomfortable conversation, but new timeline, vegan Patrick. Oh man, I'm not wrong on that. Okay, anyway. Okay. But no, that would be a good example. Oh my God, I turned out I was wrong about eating meat. Oh my God, my stomach's a graveyard. That would be something that you'd have to think about, right?
I think your first thing that you looked at is what would be the worst. That sounds very stoic to me. Okay, if the bad thing that I'm worried about happens, how bad will it be? Like that would follow that you're reading a lot of stoicism right now. That was a very good thought, or a good standard to measure it by.
Yeah. Another question is, how do I feel right now thinking about being wrong on that thing? Just thinking about that feeling. Describe the feeling, the icky feeling. What is the source of that feeling? What am I worried about if I'm wrong on that thing? Is it my reputation? Is it my ego? I've publicly said a statement and I turn out I'm wrong. Well, that kind of stings the ego a little bit. Who gives a shit about my ego? Well, we'll get to that. So just kind of asking yourself what the source of the feelings are, the resistance, the cringe, the worry. Another question I say is, if I'm wrong, how would somebody that I admire or look up to or use as a role model, if they were wrong, how would they handle being wrong? How would they handle having been wrong on something in a respectable way? If I were to think about Shepard, and I, wanted Shepard to be somebody that I looked up to or respected, what behavior would I want to see from Shepard when the rare day came that he was wrong on something? How would I want Shepard to behave? Well, whatever I say that I would want to see out of Shepard, guess what? I'm telling myself how I need to behave right now, right?
And you can predict what those people would do. I mean, if they're a good, strong, principled person, you can kind of say, okay, what would this person do if they were confronted with this? That's great. I love this.
Okay. So now it all comes to a head. This is kind of the thing that sets me straight and gets rid of that feeling and gives me a backbone again, right? So take all of that. Take the icky feelings, the cringe, the ego, the worry, the fear about things in your life you'd have to change, your relationships that might have to change, the difficult conversations where you've been wrong, the public videos where you're going to be wrong publicly and have your reputation damaged. Take all of that, ball it all up, every single thing you're worried about, every single thing you're emotional about, put it in one hand. In the other hand, ask yourself, given all of that, put truth in this hand. Given all of this, is knowing the truth more or less important to you than all of these thoughts and feelings and drama and ego and mess and blah? Is knowing and acting on and recognizing the truth about existence and the world more or less important than all of that? If the answer is less important, if truth is less important to you than all those things, you might be looking at the wrong YouTube channel. First of all, you're going to have a bad time, though. If all of those things are more important to you than truth, you're going to have a more difficult time navigating reality, because you're going to be making decisions based on things that are incongruent with reality, with the state of how things actually are. You will be less connected to the controls of life than if you have an accurate representation of full of true things that you believe. You'll be much more successful if you value truth over all of this ball of shit in the other hand. If your answer is that truth is more important, and you really, really feel that, you embrace that truth is more important than all those things, then once you realize that, once you recognize and acknowledge that, it's like your internal emotions flip. The telltale that tells you that you've made that choice to put truth first in your priority list, the emotions turn upside down. Instead of dread to have a conversation that you might be wrong. You're excited to talk to somebody that disagrees with you because they might know something you don't, and you really want to be wrong. You know, like, you want to know if you're wrong. You want that person to come into your life and to have that conversation so that if you're wrong, you can correct your misinterpretation of reality and be more in line with the truth and believe more true things and less false things. You want to be proven wrong. You are happy when you find out you're wrong. You're thrilled. You're thankful. You want to buy somebody a steak dinner when they show you that you were wrong. You appreciate your friends when they're able to prove you wrong. Like, you respect people more when they want to engage in that battle of ideas with you, because that means that you both value truth more than all these other things. And so when I daily am challenged by things, and it's a constant battle, that icky cringe feeling, you know, oh, here we go again, I might be wrong. When that happens, this is what I walk myself through. And I just wanted to share that with everybody, because that's my process. So there it is.
That's a smart process. I think a lot of us deal with that, especially guys. We have egos that maybe we shouldn't, but I look at somebody like Sherry Voluntary, and she just appears to have absolutely no ego issue. Or I was watching Aaron. Let's get all the people who care about gender stuff upset here. I was watching Aaron from Float the other day, and she said something, and somebody said she was wrong. She's like, "Oh yeah," and she went right on with it, and it didn't even faze her. If they had said something like that to a big, strong man like me, I would have, well, I don't know. I would have had to get in this whole big tussling thing. So I think it is tough for us to put ourselves, I don't know. I think about like golf. If you're not hitting the ball correctly because you're not gripping, and I don't play golf, so you're not gripping the staff or the cue or whatever it's called, that stick thingy. If you're not gripping it correctly and you've been gripping it like this, and you go to somebody and say, hey, I want to be able to hit the ball better. How should I grip it? And then they show you, wouldn't you be excited that you got this coaching, you got this truth? I think it's a lot easier for sports coaching than it is for philosophy, but it shouldn't be. And a shout out to you. Kaysen called you on something on New Year's Eve when my wife and I watched your show for the first time. He called you on something and he went, damn it, you're right. And you could just tell that you were eating it up, that this emotionally charged intellectual issue that having to do with your daughter's leukemia, you were like, yes, you just made me rethink what I thought. And you were truly appreciative of it. That made me think, oh, hey, this big time celebrity voluntarist personality is just completely vulnerable and excited and happy to be corrected. Maybe I can too.
I was with you until the celebrity thing. You lost me. Sorry.
Well, you're
talking about somebody else. Okay.
You're a big shot in our circles. And when you show that you can do it, that makes it easier for other people to also say, okay, it's okay to be wrong and to stand up. Actually, it takes a man to do that. That's cool. So thank you for that.
Well, yeah, I don't remember what you're referring to in terms of my conversation with Kaysen. The last big thing I was wrong about was state monopolized health insurance. And, you know, that was the last thing I was deeply wrong about that changed some significant decisions in life. But
yeah, it wasn't a huge thing. It was mouth sounds, and you were talking about giving medical advice, and he said, and so he just kind of resaid what you said. Oh, so you wouldn't want somebody to give the wrong advice, and you're like, damn it, you're right. And I'm like, that's so cool. It struck me.
And that has significantly changed our actions since that conversation. Like we've turned down a lot of opportunities for the channels and for YouTube and stuff like that because we don't want to get involved in medical advice for the reasons that you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Shepard. So we're coming up on 2 hours. I am perfectly happy to continue, but the viewers and you might not be. So if you want out, you have some really cool stuff on your list, and these things can be a teaser for our next show if you want, or we can get into the nap stuff now. I'm happy to do so if you want, but no hard feelings if you want to put it off till next month, because we're going to have you back, right?
Yep. Yeah, I hope so. I really enjoy this thinking. I'm up for doing it now, and I'm also completely good with. Yeah, absolutely.
Hell yes.
This is what we do when we're on vacation, right? This is like our surprise extra special anniversary night stuff. Like this is how my wife and I celebrated New Year's Eve, was watching Disenthrall. Like that's what people like us get off on. We love this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I went camping with some friends, and we just stayed up till 4 a.m. sitting in the car talking philosophy. Like,
yeah,
totally defeated the purpose of going to a forest. All right. I really want to. You have some great questions here that I want to let you set up. So why don't you get us into it?
Okay, so. In my search for truth, I have found that watching your channel is where I find the most of it. So I don't watch other stuff as much as I used to. And most of the things that I don't want to put everybody in one lump, but
hold on, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry to derail you.
No.
Is today your anniversary?
No.
Oh, okay. She just said happy anniversary.
Hang on a minute. No.
Okay. All right. I was about to. Yeah. Lynn said it. Happy anniversary. So I just wanted to make sure that you're not.
Yeah, we're having our anniversary celebration here by geeking out.
I would have felt so bad. I would have felt so bad.
No. This is great. So one of the things that I've disagreed about, or I would say I'm not yet persuaded, and I have this bias that I think that when I'm listening to you and Kaysen and Christian, primarily who I've listened to, when I hear you guys completely agreeing about something and just taking it for granted, well, of course that's how it is. I kind of have this bias of saying, well, I must be an idiot. They must have it right. But something that I still haven't been able to wrap my head around is the concept that the NAP is this foundation of morality and that it's not subjective. So if I understand correctly, let me put words in your mouth here and you can tell me where I'm wrong. But do I understand roughly correctly that it is your understanding that as long as a person does not initiate violence against another person, then they have not crossed a huge line in the sand? They can still do nasty things like flip people off, but you wouldn't say that that's immoral. You would just say, yeah, that's a jerk, but it's not a moral issue. And am I roughly right on that? Or you can probably kind of boil it down much better than I did.
Yes, that is what I would say. I think that answer is missing some context, but I don't want to interrupt you if you have a line of questioning. So how do you want to proceed?
Well, my big thought is, says who? Because
good question.
Because while
that's
you're
the context
that,
that's missing.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I just jotted down two things that a person might say, and so one of those is one person says, "Hi, I'm Patrick, and I say that violating the NAP, which is the non-aggression principle, is bad and violates the social contract that I think should exist." The next person who's sitting across the table says, "Hi, I'm Mark, and I say that failing to share all food with the commune above 1 pound that I obtain in a day, or that you obtain in a day, violates the social contract that I think should exist." Well, I think we can all agree that Mark is full of crap, and we're leaning toward Patrick here, but who says? What makes you right about it? And I know you wouldn't have put it in the social contract terms, but that's how I see it. Why am I wrong?
Yeah.
And
that's the brilliantly asked question. Like the answer will struggle to stand up to the strength of the question. That's awesome. Where to begin? Okay, so morality does not exist in reality, I guess, is one place we have to begin with. The concepts of good and evil are judgments that we place on interactions between humans. The equations that we use to plug in interactions between humans into, we plug those in like we plug numbers into variables in a math equation. We plug interactions into moral philosophy equations, and out spits an answer, good or evil, or neutral, let's say, amoral or moral, immoral, moral, or amoral. The equations that we use, that we choose to use, don't exist in reality. There is no, as Christian says recently, there is no good particle. There is no evil particle in reality that we can point a microscope at and say, oh, yep, that interaction was definitely evil. Look at all these evil particles floating around in the air afterwards. That doesn't exist. These are labels. These are terms and concepts that we choose to apply to things. And all I'm doing right now is just describing reality. I'm not trying to build anything on top of it yet. I'm just trying to describe the starting point, which is nothing. Like, in reality, the state of nature is the state of nature. People, entities take what they want. They do what they can get away with doing. Might makes right. That is reality. Anything that we apply on top of that is necessarily just our opinion, man. Like, because there is no good or evil particle that floats through the air that we can actually say, look, objectively in reality, here is the evil particle. Look, if you zoom in with a scanning electron microscope, it says evil on it. Like, it's right there. Right. That doesn't exist. So that means that we all apply these judgments of human interaction based on our own individual definitions. That necessarily means that it's a subjective thing. Like, necessarily. That is a recognition of how reality exists. That's just how it is. And different people, and again, I'm still just describing what I consider to be just bare metal obvious truth about the world. People have many different equations that they use to plug actions into and get good, evil outputs from. Which kind of proves my point. Like, if people can have different equations that they apply good and evil labels with, that just kind of backs up the fact that there is nothing objective that can be detected. So,
I'm with you.
Okay. There are different ways to use the concept objective. There are different ways to make things objective. And so now that we've kind of accepted the reality of the situation as a commie's equation is different from an actual anarchist's equation, now we can evaluate all of the different equations. Let's make a list of all the equations. Let's figure out what makes an equation better or worse than its neighbors, than its cohort. If we're going to have a moral philosophy, if we're going to have a moral rule, the better moral rules will function in more interactions than the worse ones, the more eclectic ones that, you know, I was on Christian's podcast recently, and we actually talked about this. They'll be universalizable, meaning the moral rule will be usable in all times and all places between all people, on the moon, on Earth, 100 years ago, 1,000 years in the future. If an alien arrives, like, the best quintessential moral rule could function ubiquitously, universally, in all times and places. So that gives us an important metric to compare all the different equations that people might hold in their mind. The ones that are more universalizable are necessarily better at being moral rules than the ones that aren't. The ones that are more arbitrary. Arbitrariness is another problem, right? So what does arbitrary mean? Arbitrary means basically not backed up by an argument. It means It means that it's a naked assertion. It's a special pleading fallacy. I know we've been doing the fallacy videos on your channel, which I love. And something that's arbitrary is just something that you picked just because, meaning not backed up by reason, not backed up by evidence. It doesn't have a valid argument behind it. It doesn't have sound evidence gleaned from reality to back it up. It's just a naked assertion, which means irrelevant in the realm of reason. So the more arbitrary a moral rule is, the worse it is at conforming to reality, which is consistent. A equals A, the first principles of logic, which is, the law of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. Are we familiar with those, or should we, nerd out further and go into those three? Okay. So the law of identity is A equals A. This is the founding principle. You know what? I'll do a very short TLDR version of this because I just did 2 hours on Christian show, and if you want to learn in depth what these three things are, I will point you over to Liberty After Dark, his channel. I was just on his show a couple days ago, and we went as deep as you can go with this, almost. Okay, so A equals A, meaning that a thing equals itself. Meaning something cannot be itself and not itself at the same time. Now that seems like a super weird, nerdy, eclectic thing to say or hill to die on, but it's such a basic, such a simple thing that it is literally the foundation of all rationale, all logic, all reason, all science. Every conclusion you've ever come to, you don't think about it as such, but it literally, every argument that you've ever heard, every logical proof you've ever encountered begins with A equals A. It means the universe is consistent. It's not this wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey nonsense that just shifts around because it's full of magic and, things just happen randomly, without some kind of deterministic cause. Like, the universe is consistent. So that's square one. Then there's the law of non-contradiction, which is a thing cannot be A and not A at the same time. It's either got to be one or the other. And then there's excluded middle, which means that it either has to be A or not A and nothing in between. It can't be raining and not raining at the same time, without getting into the messiness of language and, what about if it's drizzling? That's not the point.
That guy.
Yeah. So recognizing these fundamental attributes of reality, the consistency of the universe, the rules of reason derived from the consistency of the universe, the more in line with and more comporting to the fundamental consistency of reality and the rules of reason that we get from that, the better that moral rule will be at helping you interact in reality. And that goes to arbitrariness as a problem. If it's arbitrary, it doesn't really comport to the rules of reason, and you'll be less in line with reality. So the equations that are more universalizable are better than the ones that are less universalizable. The moral equations that are less arbitrary are better than the ones that are more arbitrary. So once we compare all of these and rank order them by these attributes that make them better or worse, it makes sense to say that if I'm going to choose a moral equation to form these judgments about human interactions with, I want it to be whatever one is at the top of that list. Like whatever one is most universalizable, least arbitrary, that works to help you in the most interactions that it can, in all times, places, and doesn't have anything weird and arbitrary in it, like, let's say personal versus private property. Now we're getting back to answering your question finally after 20 fucking minutes of me rambling. So the first answer to your question is it's subjective. You can pick whatever equation you want. And if you find a bunch of other people and you decide to use that equation and it's and it's really not universalizable at all, and it's terribly arbitrary, then you guys are probably going to have a bad time. But I mean, you can choose to do that, and doing it to any degree will probably elevate you out of the state of nature at least a little bit. So you'll be a little bit better off than you would if you were just whacking each other with sticks to get what you want. But I think my group over here that chooses to use the most universalizable, least arbitrary equation to plug in and to share amongst ourselves, I think we're going to end up being way more successful, way more happy than you will, and we'll be less violent as well, right? So I think we'll all be more successful. Why don't I just shut up? What do you have any thoughts on that?
What I love about this, and I think where I was having a problem, was that I thought that your position was, by golly, this is just how it is. And you're not saying that. You're saying, I've worked really hard to come up with this policy and procedure manual, and I think it's the best way to run a hamburger restaurant. But you have also come up with one on the back of your napkin, and maybe it's better. I would love to take a look at it and learn from it. But I'm not saying yours is wrong. Go for it. I'm just saying that I put a lot of work into this one, and according to this one, we only put the fries in the oil for 3 minutes. We don't put it in until we feel tenderhearted, like the other policy manual says, because that's too arbitrary. We have our systems, and this is what our systems are, and this is how we come to truth. So I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that, and it sheds light on when I barged in when Christian was on with you a week or two ago. There was something that you were saying, or Christian was saying. I'm trying to think what it was, but I was thinking it was a definitive, this is the right way, this is the wrong way. But no, this is just the system that we think is going to work best. And try your system, but I'm probably not going to want to hang out with you. I'm not going to want to eat your fries if you put them in until you feel more tenderhearted and soft and gentle in your hearty heart. I'm not going to want to eat your fries. They're going to be burned by then. So yeah, it makes complete sense to have your system.
And now just to embellish a little bit, like, I don't think it's merely like, at the top of a sorted list. Like, I am surprised by the universalizability of the non-aggression principle. To this day, I have yet to find a circumstance in which it isn't universalizable, which is a bold claim, one that I'm one of my positions that I'm actively seeking people to prove me wrong on, for sure. But my current position is that the NAP is universalizable. I have not yet found a situation in which it breaks down and in which it can't resolve a dispute with sort of the least amount of victims or violence or damage or things like that. So I think it's kind of special because it's like the first time in the history of the human species that we've arrived at a conclusion or an equation that works in as many situations. And so at this point, like, to use anything else would be to like try to go back to shouting over long distances instead of using the internet. It's just like, okay, well, that's all ancient technology now. We've got this discovery. It's like a major scientific. It's like discovering electricity. It's like, why would we ever go back to not having an understanding of electromagnetism? Like, it's just so useful and obvious and simple to implement. And anyway, but yeah, all of this is still subjective, quote unquote, nonsense. Like, if a commie chooses to interact with a much less efficient, much more rivalrous, combative property system that's full of subjective arbitrariness, I mean, I'm not going to associate with them on that level because they will likely eventually attack me over something in their equation that leads them to think I'm the bad guy. Okay, well, they've just reduced us back down to the state of nature. That is reality. Like, guess what, guys? That's where we live. That's where we're from. We're from this reality place where animals kill each other to eat. Nice to meet you. We're here. That's where we are. Now, me and my friends are going to be over here. I'm going to try and surround myself by people that want to elevate ourselves out of that using the best equation that we've found to date. And, you know, I think we're going to live a lot happier, chill, less violent life for doing so. But I also recognize that there's people out there all over the place that don't use that equation, and they will point guns at me on the day. They do point guns at us on the daily, you know, and we have to deal with that. Why do we have to deal with that? Well, because our equation, because our NAP doesn't exist in reality. We can't hold it up on a piece of paper that says NAP and block bullets. Doesn't work. Like, bad people that attack us exist. That is existence. To think otherwise is to leave yourself unprotected in a really dangerous way. Like, if you think the Bill of Rights protects you, that's worse. That's worse than realizing that you have no protection. Like, to think you're protected and not be protected, you are in greater danger than if you realize you're unprotected, because you won't be ready to defend yourself, because you'll think the magic amendment document will block bullets for you. Like a video that Ryan and I were going to do 7 years ago when we started Disenthrall. And I think I have we bought the Bill of Rights document on a poster size on parchment. We were going to go to the gun range and, you know, do an experiment video where we saw if the Bill of Rights was going to, you know, stop us from being able to put a bullet through it to, you know, violate one of the rights or whatever. Just to make the point, like, these are just words, these are just concepts, these are just ideas that you've been taught protect you, but guess what? They don't actually stop bullets. So, and this whole thing that we just talked about was me being wrong 5 years ago. This was not my position 5 years ago. There was a moment where I was like, holy shit, I'm wrong. And not only have I been wrong, I've been telling people in my YouTube channel something that is wrong. I've been saying that morality is objective, that there's something out there that defines these ideas as inviolate and part of reality, part of the fabric of reality. And I had to take that ego hit and change my position by force of reason. I love that phrase. I am forced into my positions by reason. That's an equivocation, obviously, but, you know, I think it makes the point. Like, I value truth to such an extent that reason can force me to hold positions. So here I am.
I think what we have just been chatting about is a great example of how two people entering something without giving up anything that, like, I don't think either of us beat the other over the head, but I now completely agree with you. And it was simply me not understanding your position clearly enough that was keeping me from believing that. And now at this point, I'm like, well, yeah, that all seems absolutely right. Yeah, I'm not going to stick to my old idea of I'm not completely convinced. Okay, I'm convinced now. All you had to do is say that. So this is a good encouragement to me when I do have differences with folks to say, hey, is this what you really mean? Or am I just not understanding it correctly? So thank you for helping me understand it correctly.
I could be wrong. I think that was maybe the first time I've talked through it as clearly as that. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that, because I think that was maybe the most clear way to express my current and best position on objective morality. And that is to say, let me address that really quickly. So I would still say, so when I say, I would still call myself somebody that espouses an objective morality. But I always qualify that now, because I'm not, when I say my judgments of good and evil are objective, I'm not saying that they exist in reality through the evil particle. I say that they are objective as in my equation includes no elements that are subjective, which is maybe a super nerdy, eclectic point to make. And it's probably bad to use the word objective just because it has so many connotations to other people that are objective moralists or moral realists or whatever. But I still think it's important to not include subjectivity in your equations. And so I need to find a new word. And I was talking to Christian about this a while back, and I still haven't found a good word for it. But it's not, you can't call something that includes no subjectivity subjective, and you also really can't call it objective because of the connotations of objective morality. So question mark. If anybody has a good word to call this moral philosophy that I just described, I am totally open to hearing it. I would love to have a name for the book that I'm going to write, hopefully describing what I just talked about. Like I don't have that yet. Helen asks, what is your definition of property? What can be property by your definition of property? Property is a scarce, rivalrous resource, which means we did a video on it on this channel. You can Google it. It's like 15 minutes long, called Why is Property? It's a cartoon. It's funny with drawings and narration. But
red sports car, yeah.
That was another one. We did 2 cartoons. But
okay.
Why is Property is the one I'm talking about. It's there are things in the world, in existence, that can only be used by a single person at a time. And in a state of nature, cavemen tend to thump each other over the head with rocks and sticks over these things. And whoever's the strongest or scariest is the one that gets to use them. Property is a decision by people, much like the morality we've been talking about with equations. Property is an agreement between people to use an equation to determine who has rightful use of a piece of scarce, rivalrous property. Rivalrous means specifically that can only be used by one person at a time. And so you need to find people that share your equation for solving the problem of rivalrousness. Well, in the same way that we just discussed, actually, this is an interesting parallel. So in the same way that we just discussed, let's list all of the moral philosophies and then rank them by their most important attributes. Let's rank all the property systems. Let's list all the property systems and rank them by their attributes. What attribute should we rank property systems by? Well, let's begin with the question of why do we have a property system? To reduce conflict over rivalrous resources. Okay, well, why don't we examine, or why don't we order the list of property systems by how good or effective they are at reducing conflict over rivalrous resources? And so then you go right back into the pretty much the same stuff that we use for moral philosophies. Is it usable in all the times and places, or only some of them? Is it arbitrary, or is it, backed up by, something consistent that reflects the fundamental consistency of the universe? So if we rank all the property systems by this, you don't want something with a lot of subjective arbitrary rules like personal and private property. Well, what makes something a means of production? What constitutes abandonment? Blah, blah, blah. You want the simplest rule that can function in all times and places between all types of property and people. And then you get to sort of the neo-Lockean, first use property rule, single rule. It's really simple. Get there first and use it first. You own the thing. You have the highest claim to ownership over the thing. So that is my property rant.
Well said. Well said.
Yep. Okay. Let me see. Let me just catch up on comments, and then that might be a good place to end it. Or did you have a part 2 to that?
No, that sounds good. I think just in going over what we did, kind of my part 2 is that there isn't one NAP. There are multiple ones. And I came to that because I have some friends who include animals in the non-aggression principle. And then I realized maybe isn't like, I think that the non-aggression principle is not initiating violence against folks. Well, if somebody else says non-aggression principle is not initiating violence against other folks or animals or celery, then who am I really to say, no, that isn't your principle? Well, no, that is their non-aggression principle. It is different line. And do I claim right to the words non-aggression principle, and only I may define what that is? No. They get to define their principles as they choose. And again, it comes down to language. We're sharing words that we might assign different values to. And so I think it's more of just a word problem. But I've stopped claiming rights to NAP. If you want to think that it means riding horses is fun, okay, that's what NAP means to you. It's just not how I use it in a sentence.
Yeah, I found myself using the same language I use for like, is this person a libertarian? Because that's such a commonly bantered argument, right? I've stopped saying, yeah, they're a libertarian, or no, you're not libertarian. I say you're a less consistent libertarian. Your property system is more arbitrary and less good at being a property system. So I choose not to use it. Your moral philosophy has some inconsistencies, some conflicts. It's less consistent. It's more arbitrary. Can't really universalize it as well. Like, those are the kinds of comments that I make when I talk about this stuff, instead of saying, this is how it is. Well, why? You know, pick or it didn't happen. Show me a picture of the nap encoded on some atoms. You know, like, can't do that. It sucks. It sucks that we can't do that. It sucks that I can't say there's an objective morality. I can prove it mathematically. And there are a few of my positions that I want to be proven wrong on. This is one. I want to be proven wrong. If you can prove objective morality, I actively want you to seek me out, and I actively really, really desire to have a conversation with you so that I can learn something new and be wrong. So last call for questions. If you have a question for either of us, put question in all caps, followed by your question, and we'll get to it. Let me just check here really quick. Okay, so let's chill for like another minute or two, and just to give people time to type some questions if they have any. Lynn asks, please repeat your definition to me. I value truth to such an extent that ... I don't remember what I said. What was my definition of what? Are you talking about the thing that I said at the beginning where I want to believe as many true things as I can and as few false things as I can? That's not original by me, though I wish it was. There's a guy named Matt Dillahunty that I think is the one that said that first. But man, it embodies exactly the perspective I think most people should have. Because it's both sides of the coin, and both sides are super, super important. Like, I want to believe as many true things as I can. I think most people are on board with that one. But they always forget, like, you have to have standards in the other direction as well. And I also want to actively disbelieve as many false things as I can. Like, I need to go looking for the false things too, and not just be content to believe the things that I believe and leave them unchallenged. No. If I'm wrong, I want to find those things and get rid of them. So yeah, both ways. Gotta have standards in both directions. For sure. Man, I've enjoyed talking to you, Shepard. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you. It's good to exercise our brains. This is fun. And I am way above plugging anything. I just don't think it's appropriate when we're just having a philosophical conversation. I would never get all commercial here. So this book, Larkin Rose and I wrote, and Patrick narrated, and they're all available on the most available platform out there. And I know many of you are thinking, well, it's Amazon and they suck. Yes, they do. And I would strongly encourage you to come up with something that has another company that has a lot more people that check into it daily and see stuff. This is something I'm selling it at cost. So I'm not making any money from this. I want this out there. If anybody wants a bunch of copies of this and you're going to get into the right hands, I'll give it to you. I can get a little bit of a better deal if I buy this directly from Amazon. Let me know. I'll get you some at my cost. So that's what I have to say about that. Patrick's, for the followers of his show, you don't have to spend the $1 or $2 that it is on Amazon if you want to save that. If you're a supporter of his show, he has a free audio file that he created of this book. Make sure to check that out. It's awesome.
Not anymore. We took it down. It was only for a week, right?
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Yep. You know what? I'm going to change the rules until Amazon tells us to change it. So feel free to put it back up if you like. I'm not doing this to make money. Somebody needed to write the best book ever on really short and sweet so that Cynthia and I can understand it. If we're not geeky into this kind of stuff, we're smart, but we're not geeks. We needed a book and nobody had written it yet. And Larkin got the foundation built, and then I tried to sweeten it up some with Lynn's help. And it isn't perfect, but I encourage you, make it better. I'll send you a copy of what we have. Make it better. It's truly something that I want 7 billion people to get the best version of it. And it probably isn't perfect now. So please take it and make it better.
It's like an hour-long read. It's a really short audiobook from the perspective of an ex-police officer who kind of worked his way through the simple logic behind voluntarism. Man, I was honored that you wanted me to do the audio, first of all, and still am. Just like I was honored when Larkin had me do the one for Most Dangerous Superstition. Wow, what an honor, right? But also, like, I just enjoyed reading it. It was a good read, and it was so short. You just, like, I think any other author would have made that a 10-hour book, but you somehow managed, just like you do in your YouTube content, you managed to make it a really short book. So that's cool. So supporters, we had a page up on the website where you could listen to the audiobook for free. So if you're a supporter of the show, Anarchast and Disenthrall, in the next day or two, I'll probably get that re-uploaded again for you. Thank you, Shepard. That's awesome. And supporters, you'll be able to get the audiobook for free. Otherwise, it's available now on Audible, correct?
It is. It's on Audible. And I would say that if you've read it in any format, please go on and write a review. I don't care so much, except that I really want it out there. And Amazon has algorithms that, so far it's been out for about a month and nobody has written a single review. That either means it sucks, which please send me an email on how to correct it. If it doesn't suck, then please give it a good rating so that it moves up in their algorithms and more people can be introduced to the ideas of voluntarism.
I wish I had an Amazon account that didn't have my name on it, because it would be weird to say narrated by Patrick Smith and then see Patrick Smith down there saying, "Oh, this is the best book ever. You should buy it."
This guy's voice is so sexy. I really enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah. Wow, and boy, that narrator. Woo.
Yeah, woo, boy.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening. Thanks for hanging out for this longer show. Man, there was some quality advice early on and some really good discussions about the non-aggression principle and moral philosophy afterwards. I guess the last thing I want to mention is I think I still need to have Mark Passio on, because I think I have the most viewers that would say that they ascribe to an objective morality, and they get that from following Mark Passio's work. And so we definitely do have some differing ideas. And I don't know, maybe it's fair to say that if there's one person left that could be the one to prove me wrong on objective morality not being a thing, it might be Passio. Though I've had discussions with some of his followers, and unfortunately I'm not sure that that's going to be the case, but it's still worth having the discussion. And I guess that's the last thing I'll say. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I enjoy chatting with you guys, and we're going to be trying to do weekly shows going forward for as long as I possibly can with the new job obligations. And we're going to be having like these returning guests that I find to just be the brains that not only need more attention and exposure. Like, guys, I still think Shepard has less than 1,000 subs on his channel. Please go check out his channel, Shepard the Voluntaryist. That's embarrassing for us, not for him, that he has less than 1,000. Go check his channel out. Yeah, so I'm going to start having these guests on more frequently that I think have the brains that we need to be interacting with on these ideas. So, Shepard, thanks for being one of those brains. You're awesome.
Thanks for having me on. I'm honored.
All right, guys. Have a good evening. We are out. I still don't have a good outro for Disenthrall. Bye.
Christian, get on it.